Hey everyone, today we are diving into OpenTofu, a powerful tool that's been making waves in the infrastructure world since 2024. If you've heard of Terraform but want to understand what OpenTofu is all about, this video is for you. Let's start with the basic. Before we talk about OpenTofu, let's understand what it actually does. Imagine you need to set up servers, databases, and networks in the cloud. Traditionally, you'd click through web interfaces or run commands manually, which is time consuming and error prone. Infrastructure as code or IAC lets you describe your entire infrastructure using simple text files. Think of it like a recipe. You write down exactly what you want and the tool creates it for you automatically. This means you can version control your infrastructure, share it with teammates, and recreate it anywhere. OpenTofu is the open source infrastructure as code tool that helps you build, change, and manage your cloud infrastructure safely and efficiently. Here's what makes it special. First, it's completely free and open source, managed by Linux Foundation, which means no single company controls it. Second, it's what we call a drop-in replacement for Terraform. If you're already using Terraform, you can switch to OpenTofu without changing your existing configuration files. Third, it has access to over 3,900 providers. That means you can manage resources across AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, and hundreds of other services using the same tool. And fourth, it has a thriving community with over 23,600 modules you can use as building blocks for your infrastructure. Now, here's where the story gets interesting. OpenTofu exists because of a dramatic change that happened in August 2023. Terraform, the most popular infrastructure as code tool, was created by a company called HashiCorp. For years, Terraform was completely open source, which meant anyone could use it freely and contribute to its development. But in August 2023, HashiCorp changed Terraform's license from the Mozilla Public License to something called BUSL, the Business Source License. This new license had restrictions that worried the community, especially companies that built their businesses around Terraform. The community responded quickly. But in August 2023, HashiCorp changed Terraform's license from the Mozilla Public License to something called BUSL, the Business Source License. This new license had restrictions that worried the community, especially companies that built their businesses around Terraform. The community responded quickly. Within just 1 month, a group of companies including Gruntworks, Facelift, and others announced that they were creating a fork of Terraform, essentially copying the open source code to create a new project. By September 2023, this fork was named OpenTofu and placed under the Linux Foundation's protection. By January 2024, OpenTofu was officially ready for production use. This wasn't just a technical decision, it was a statement about keeping infrastructure tools truly open and community controlled. Let's talk about how OpenTofu actually works. It's surprisingly straightforward. You start by writing configuration files using a language called HCL, HashiCorp Configuration Language. Don't worry, it's more simpler than it sounds. These files describe what infrastructure you want. Like, I want 3 web servers and a database. When you run OpenTofu, it first creates what's called a plan, essentially showing you exactly what it's going to create, modify, or delete. This is like a preview before making any real changes. Once you approve the plan, OpenTofu talks to your cloud providers through their APIs and creates the actual infrastructure. It keeps track of everything it creates in something called a state file. Think of it as OpenTofu's memory of what it has built. The beauty is that you can change your configuration files later, and OpenTofu will figure out what needs to be updated to match your new requirement. Now the big question, is OpenTofu better than Terraform? The answer depends on what you value most. OpenTofu is generally open source with no licensing restriction. If you're building a business or working for a company that values open source principles, this is huge. You'll never have to worry about license changes affecting your ability to use the tool. Being under the Linux Foundation means no single company can make unilateral decisions about OpenTofu's future. The community has a real voice in its development. Since becoming independent, OpenTofu has been adding features that go beyond what Terraform offers. The development is community driven and often fast. You're not dependent on HashiCorp's business decisions or pricing changes. Terraform has been around longer and has more enterprise adoption. Some organizations prefer the backing of an established company. There are more tutorials, courses, and learning materials for Terraform, though this gap is closing quickly. HashiCorp offers commercial support options that some large enterprises require. HashiCorp offers commercial support options that most of the large enterprises require. That said, the practical reality is that for most users, especially those starting fresh, OpenTofu is the better choice. It offers all the Terraform's capabilities without the licensing concerns, plus the benefits of true community governance and ongoing innovation. If you're already heavily invested in Terraform, the migration to OpenTofu is typically straightforward, often just changing a few commands in your workflow, since OpenTofu maintains full backward compatibility. Ready to try OpenTofu? Well, here's how to get started. First, install OpenTofu from their official website. It works on Windows, Mac, and Linux. Next, try their Getting Started guide, which walks you through creating your first infrastructure on your preferred cloud provider. Start small Maybe create a single virtual machine or storage bucket. The configuration files are human readable, so you can understand what's happening even as a beginner. Join the OpenTofu community on GitHub and their Discord server. The community is welcoming and helpful to newcomers. However, I have placed an OpenTofu setup guide in the description box below. Please make sure you go through it. Looking ahead, OpenTofu's future looks bright. The project is actively developed by dozens of contributors with new features being added regularly that go beyond Terraform's capabilities. The Linux Foundation's backing provides stability and ensures the project will remain truly open source. Thanks for watching. If you find this helpful, like and subscribe for more content about modern infrastructure tools. And remember, with OpenTofu, your infrastructure is as open as your imagination. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.